Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of the Elliot Loney Podcast. Today, I was joined by my good friend Neel Kolhatkar, who also coincidentally happens to be one of the biggest comedians in the country. He has hundreds of thousands of followers across his social media platforms, and he has toured and sold out shows across the land. He's a ripping fella, and I think this podcast is going to be really interesting for anyone who's interested in comedy, interested in the intricacies behind comedy, or just a big fan of Neel Kolhatkar's. I know you're going to love this one. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell to stay notified every time I go live with a video. I really do appreciate your support, and get stuck into it. Cheers.
Neel, you enigmatic bastard. What's going on, brother? Good to have you here.
I like that. I like that word, enigmatic. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no worries, mate. Yeah, I was watching a bit of Shawshank Redemption earlier today, so that Morgan Freeman enigmatic word stuck with me. So
nice. What's the other word you always use when you do Morgan Freeman? Magnanimous.
Magnanimous.
Yeah, it's truly
truly.
I love that.
Mate, how are you shaping up in isolation? What's going on? What's the setup here? You've got a nice little setup in the background here.
Oh yeah, this is the pad. This is my apartment here in Sydney. Yeah, it's not too bad at the start. It was strange just getting used to it, but I think I'm used to it now, to be honest. Like, luckily I can still do some of my work. I can't do stand-up, but been pumping out the videos. Now restrictions are kind of easing, so we're slowly getting back to normal. So yeah, look, can't complain too much. Would really like to get back to normal though.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that, I see a pen and paper behind you. Is that your joke book by any chance? You've been writing some gags?
Oh, yeah, always, man. Always hustling. This was actually a sketch, man. I've been wanting to do this sketch for months, right? It's all about, so it's about Aussie nicknames. And, well, I wanted to do it with, like, some of the boys up here in Sydney, but maybe when I'm in Melbourne, we could do it. So it's all about how Aussies will always give each other a nickname, even if it's not a convenient nickname. So
That's so true.
Like, you'd think, like, if a guy has a first name like Joe, he doesn't need a nickname. But no, that instead they'll just call him by his last name, even if his last name's like, what have I got? Eisenspitzenhuth. So it's just like, hey, Eisenspitzenhuth, how you going, mate? And then I'm the idiot in there, like, why don't you just call him Joe, mate? That's just un-Australian. You wouldn't do that. So that's the premise of the sketch. Still working on it, but yeah.
No, mate. As I said, I always like working with you. Any project that you're spearheading, I love getting around. So I'm sure it'll be great. And yeah, mate, if this isolation ever ends, I'd love to feature in that sketch, but hopefully it doesn't force us both into retirement.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a head above water too, or something like that. Back from the dead.
We'll talk about that as we get stuck into the podcast. But before we get stuck right into the nitty gritty stuff, comedy isn't necessarily a career path that a lot of people choose. It's not something that a lot of people aspire to become, and obviously I know firsthand. So as a kid, were you always like the class clown? Like, how did you discover comedy? Did you always aspire to be a comedian?
From when I was quite young, I wanted to be an actor. It wasn't till I was a teenager that I got into comedy. So I think it was my year 6 musical or play, and I didn't even want to audition for it, but I just auditioned for it to try to impress this girl that I liked, to be honest. And because everyone else auditioning for it was taking it really seriously, you could tell they were really nervous. They didn't fully let themselves go when they were singing, because it was a musical, whereas I just took the piss. But because I was confident and I didn't care, I actually got the role. And then I loved it. Like that play, it's still on my YouTube channel. It's called The Monster Mash. It was based off that song.
So how old were you?
I would have been 10 or 11, I think.
Wow, yeah,
yeah, real young. And then from there, I really loved performing, and I did a lot of acting classes, a lot of drama classes. I was always doing acting after school and stuff like that. And I noticed I was really good at the character acting, good at accents, good at impersonations, and comedy seemed to be my strength. So I could really portray over-the-top, crazy characters well. So I tried my hand at stand-up comedy. I think I was 15. And
so young.
I won. Yeah, I won it was like a national competition, and I was lucky enough to win that. And then from then that's when I said I can and I want to do this professionally, and haven't looked back since. So
that's like fascinating to me, because when I was 15, like I was always sort of the class clown growing up in school, but there is no way in hell that I would have considered doing stand up at 15. So like, how did that even become something that you even considered doing at that age?
I'm trying to think. Like I really from like I said, from when I did that play when I was in year 6, I know it sounds a bit cliche or whatever, but man, I just loved it. I love being on stage. I love performing. I love the feeling I got when I was on stage, and the energy and the enthusiasm of a crowd if they really loved it. So I just really fell in love with that feeling. So I was a bit of a overachiever in drama, but only in drama. Like I was always doing all the extracurricular stuff. Anytime there was like a drama opportunity in school, I would do it. So I just really loved it, and because I did so much of it, I was quite good at it. So naturally, I was just gonna fall for it even more, because I just could see myself getting better at it, and I don't know. I can't really delve into it too much. I just loved it, I guess.
Well, unlike a lot of people, me actually included in this, you're a very educated guy. You're a very smart guy, and I know that from.
I act like I am. I don't know if I really
am.
am.
No. This is true for people watching who may or may not know Neel from away from his characters and his sketches and stuff. I've had some conversations with you where your intellect shines through, and I know that you're very educated, and you always I know you excelled in academia in high school and stuff like that. So was there ever a moment when you were growing up where you were obviously grappling with being quite smart and then doing comedy? Like when you explained to your parents, like, I'm going to do comedy now, or this is something I want to pursue, did your parents say, no, Neel, you're a doctor? Like
not quite that. They're not the strictest of Indian parents, thankfully, actually.
Yeah.
I know a few other Indian mates that their parents wouldn't have looked too fondly on their son pursuing a career in the arts. Luckily, no, my parents were always really supportive. I always planned to go to uni, so I started doing uni in 2013. I took a gap year in 2012, and I started an economics degree. But even then, I was doing acting and comedy. Well, I was doing uni part-time, and then I was going to open mics at night. I was just trying to push for the comedy as much as possible. I was posting videos back then, and luckily it popped off quite early. So when I just started uni, that's when the videos started going viral, and I started gaining some traction and getting an audience. So I thought, look, I've only just started this degree. I think I'll put it on hold for now. And it's still on hold to this day. So, look, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think you have to be smart to be good at comedy.
Yeah.
You have to be very perceptive. You have to be able to understand people, and not only understand them, but be able to articulate their ideals and their values, but also illustrate that in a comedic way. And I think that's what you do. That's what a lot of us on the internet do with our satire and with the characters we portray. So it's not as though I'm not flexing my brain when I'm writing the jokes. And I still read a lot. I try to try to listen to as many podcasts as I can. So I don't think it's sort of a choice between being really smart and being a comedian. I think the best comedians in the world are very smart, even if their jokes and their characters might come across as lowbrow or even juvenile. I think obviously I'm biased, but I think it takes a lot of brains to be a good comedian.
No, absolutely. And circling back to before, because we'll get to all that about how you blew up, and obviously your numbers on YouTube are insane. You built a really big following off the back of it. But you said that you did your first stand-up gig when you were 15. In those really early developmental stages of your career, was there someone that you looked to as a mentor or someone to guide you through the way? Because that's tough, man, starting at 15. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, I guess it's almost, for me, I would say, because I started so young, I almost felt like there was no pressure at all. So I always knew it was something I was doing on the side. And even the other people I was competing against, if you can call, a comedy showcase a competition, you could tell they had a lot of pressure on them, whether it was from themselves or their peers, but they really wanted to perform. And the best comedy comes when you're relaxed and when you're just being yourself and you give no fucks. Like that I think produces the best comedy. So in a weird way, I think that actually helped me being really young, to the point where I would have been disappointed if I didn't do well, but I don't think it would have been the end of the world. Whereas now, because it's my profession and I'm known as a pretty decent comedian, I like to think, I actually feel there's sometimes more pressure on me. But going back to whether I had an idol or a mentor or anything like that, look, with stand-up, I didn't really have a personal mentor or anything like that. I looked up to guys like Russell Peters when I first started, as any brown comedian would have, and Chris Rock has always been the guy for me. I love Chris Rock. I think he's a genius. I still watch his stand-up specials to this day, and every time I watch it, I pick up on something new, and I think that's the marker of a really clever comedian, someone who is very subversive with their comedy, and the comedy is very multi-layered. So I watched it as a 13-year-old and I thought, man, this guy's hilarious, so funny. I watch it now and I can't help but notice like there's so much thought that goes into all his punchlines and the way it's constructed, the way he delivers it. I look up to that guy more than anyone. I love Chris Rock. He's a genius.
Oh, no doubt. I love him as well. I think he's an absolute gun. But I'm just interested to hear, because obviously going back to like 15 years old, was there someone who obviously saw you and went, you know what, I respect this kid's balls. I'm going to get around him and give him a few pointers. You know what I mean? That surely must have happened off stage. Someone comes up, slaps you on the back and says, you know what, Neel? Here's what it takes, mate.
Okay, there were people at that competition I did, which it's called Class Clowns, by the way. If there's any high school age kids who are interested in getting into comedy in Australia, it's a good start. Look up Class Clowns. And there were comedians that ran each stage of the competition, so the heats and the final and then the national final. And yeah, they were talking to me and they were saying, you've got talent and keep at it. And they were giving me a little bit of, they were giving me some pointers here and there about some of my material. I think I got a suburb reference wrong in Sydney at one point. I think I was doing this joke about how, the show Bondi Vet, I was going through all the different suburbs in Sydney. Imagine if it was this vet. Imagine if it was, so Bankstown, for example, is like the Broadmeadows of Sydney. I was like, imagine that. Then I was saying, imagine if it was like this rich area. And then I said, imagine if we had Bondi Vet. And then for some reason, I thought Bondi was a gay area. So the comedian was like, yeah, dude, just so you know, Bondi is not really a gay area. I don't know where you got that from. I don't know where I got that from. It's not at all. It's a backpacking area. So yeah, there were guys on the way, and man, I can't look past the drama teachers I had. They were very enthusiastic about me pursuing career in acting in the arts. So there wasn't one specific person, but it was just a combination of all the teachers and tutors, I suppose, that I had throughout my teenage years. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I know in just in my own experience, when you're starting out as well in those real developmental stages, I had a couple of tough gigs where, I tanked pretty hard and you go far out. Is this the career for me? Was there ever a moment that you ever doubted yourself, or was from the moment you stepped on stage as a 15-year-old, you felt like you had a real knack for it?
I've definitely had bad gigs, and I had one comes to mind. Oh man, this one. So I was at this acting school. It was just after I won this competition, and this was an acting school for all ages. In fact, 15, 16 we were the eldest. There were a lot of young kids in primary school, and they said, "Hey, we're having a talent show on the weekend. Why don't you do your comedy act?" And I just wasn't thinking at the time, and I thought, yeah, fine, I'll do that. Why not? Doesn't work, man. In a variety show like that, you can't have like a fucking 5-year-old playing the flute And then this 15-year-old coming out swearing, talking about sex jokes and all sorts of stuff. The parents were like, "What the fuck is this?" I remember I did it was next to a church, and I did all these, like, I thought I was being all edgy. I thought I was being Ricky Gervais or whatever, and I did all these like religious jokes as well. And I told them to my Christian friend at school the day before, and he was like, "Yeah, that's fine. They're funny. I think they're funny." But the thing is, they were all like 70, 80-year-olds that came to the talent show.
Oh no, that's a disaster.
The host had to apologise after I was done. So, yeah, to this day, it's probably still the worst gig I've ever done. And I had to perform afterwards to the same people. And thankfully, they were pretty forgiving, which is good. They're really enacting their value there. Forgive and forget. But yeah, I misread that crowd completely. And yeah, that was brutal. But I don't know, being the edgy kind of teenager I was like, they just don't understand me. I'm better than them. So I didn't actually doubt myself, but that could have been through a bit of ignorance more than anything.
That's a great attitude.
Yeah, I've always had bad gigs since then, but that one sticks out. I've never man. I've been pretty fortunate. Like, I've always just had quite a lot of conviction that this was something. This was what I wouldn't say I was like put on earth to do, but this is definitely what I'm the best at. And I've just always thought, even after bad shows and things like that, rather than doubting my ability to do comedy, I just doubt the jokes I might have performed. And I sort of asked myself, okay, what could I have done better? Can I write better jokes? But no, I've never really doubted that this is something I want to do and I want to keep doing.
That's excellent to hear, man. And like, you know, it must be really great for you to know that you found your calling so early on, because I know that there'd be a lot of people watching this right now, listening to this, who are aspiring comedians, listening to your story, who probably don't know what they want to do yet, might be wanting to get their feet wet, dip their toes in the water, try comedy. So, you know, I guess the message there is just go out there and have a crack. You got to try it. You can't be scared. You know.
Absolutely, yeah. Just go for it. I did, and it worked for me. And be versatile. I was we, you know, you, me, and the guys, we were some of the first comedians to actually utilize the internet. And now all of them are jumping on board, and they criticized us at the start.
They sure did.
Look at these internet comedians, they're not real comedians.
They sure did.
You've got to question them. I mean, are they real comedians? If you're not on the internet, what are you doing? Like, just a relic of the past. So,
I agree with you so much.
Yeah, be versatile. That's a big one.
No, that's very true. And I mean, you heard it from Neel now, ladies and gentlemen. If you are an aspiring comedian and you want to get into comedy, do not listen to those old hat comedians. Get online, get your stuff online, and be as versatile as you can on as many mediums as you possibly can.
100%. Absolutely.
Now, Neel, let's move on, because I want to move on to the mid stages of your career. And you've an amazing rap sheet here. Like, I'm looking at it right now. You know, millions of views online. One of your most notable videos, Modern Education, over 15 million views on that video alone on YouTube, which is mental. You know, that's an awesome video, by the way. Go check it out if you haven't already. I actually watched it just before I got you on here. I watch it sometimes just because I love watching it. So you've got some impressive videos on there, a lot of subscribers, over 600,000 subs. Like, what is, out of all the videos you've done, is there anything that I haven't mentioned, you know, that stands out to you and you go, I love that, that was really great?
Well, the one you mentioned, Modern Education, I can't look past that. That's my best work to date. That one, it's a short film. You know, I put a lot of artistic energy into that. It wasn't just a sketch where I was looking to get views or looking to get shares. I was actually trying to say something meaningful in that film. And you know what? When we posted it, I thought, oh, look, if this gets 10,000 views, I'd be happy, honestly, because it's so counterintuitive, the way we structured it as to what traditionally goes well online. I mean, it's for the first 1 minute, no one even says a line of dialogue, and the traditional thinking is get to the punchlines as fast as you can, especially if you're doing comedy, grab people's attention. But then I woke up the next day and I was like, it says 500,000 views. What the hell?
That's amazing, yeah.
And my Twitter messages are blowing up. all these. It went really big in America to start off with, and suddenly out of nowhere, I kept refreshing my Twitter mentions, and all these people are tweeting about me, tweeting about the film, and getting all these new subscribers. And the other good thing about that film is it had a second wave in 2017, I believe, where all these pages were re-uploading it to Facebook.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I just missed the copyright days where you couldn't copyright videos back then. And I'm not even exaggerating this. We counted somewhere in like the hundreds of millions of views, and most of them didn't credit me. And look, I'm not complaining. Like, I'm just glad that my work reached that many people, to be honest. But
I'm glad you're not complaining, because I sure as fuck would be.
yeah. Oh, look, I'm still. I still think it's not fair that I didn't at least tag. But
yeah, you got to be
credited. I try to look at the positives. I'm trying to be the glass half full kind of guy. But yeah, man, if you're talking about notable videos and notable work, that to this day, modern education still is number one. I'm pretty proud of the stand-up specials I've done. Australian 2 minutes, can't look past that. Especially if you're here.
That was the defining video, wasn't it? That was the one that set the precedent. That was the one that set the stage for Neel Kolhatkar bursting through, wasn't it?
In Australia, it definitely did, man. That also it blew up overnight out of nowhere. I was refreshing the Facebook, and it just was going like 3,000, 3,500. It was insane, man. And within a week, it had 1 million views, and everyone. I got recognized once or twice with some of my really old Cog Dog stuff, ironically, who now I've brought back. But I went out 2 days after Australian 2 minutes came out, and I was in the city. I was doing this open mic gig, and everyone's double taking. They're like, "Is that the guy?" That's and I was more starstruck and nervous than they were, because that was so new to me. I couldn't believe this was happening. I just caught a train, and half the people at the train station were like, "Oh my god, bro, are you that? Oh, bro, let me get a photo." Like, it's my area.
No, dude, 100%. Like, to a lesser extent, I've experienced that as well with Man vs Metro when that first went viral for me, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's such a surreal feeling when you're walking out in the street and people know who you are, and they go, "Is that the guy?" I know exactly what you mean, man. It's crazy, isn't it? And obviously, it must have been on a crazy scale for you, because that video blew up like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, it happened. It was so immediate. It happened. It quite literally happened overnight. I was still, I was 19 or whatever, and you'd think being a 19-year-old and like getting recognized all the time would be sick, but no, I didn't like going out, man, because it was I'd go to clubs and things like that, and
there must have been a few chicks that would have.
Oh yeah, I'm not again. Like, look at the positives there. There was definitely there were definitely some girls that wouldn't have been interested in me otherwise. Let's just say that. Positives and negatives.
So sure, you look like an Abercrombie and Finch model, mate, with that slick back hair right now. You know what I mean?
Oh, what now?
Yeah.
Not much work today, but yeah, I'm really digging the long hair and the beard. I think I'm going for kind of a weird. I don't know. It's like a hipster, but also
a cultured King Leonidas with the beard and the.
I like that. Yeah, bring back that samurai. I'm usually got that samurai look where I've got like a man bun at the top, but some hair going down underneath.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not right now. Now it's just just a ponytail or whatever. But it was just a really weird thing to get used to, being so recognizable everywhere I went. It's crazy. Much more comfortable with it now. No, I love it now, and I'm so thankful that many people know me and recognize me for what I do. It took a while to get used to it, but no, it's I'm very thankful now.
No, mate, you deserve the praise. You've worked hard, and I think you're a real talent, man. So hats off to you, brother.
Cheers. Appreciate it.
Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about, and I'm interested to hear your answer to this. What do you think makes a great comedian in this modern landscape?
A great stand-up comedian?
Well, I think in this modern landscape, probably classifies online, you know,
Yeah.
the kind of comedian you are now, modern day comedian across all platforms, doing stand up, doing videos, you know, what makes a great comedian this day?
Well, thinking outside the box, being different, and being really perceptive. Because traditionally, you have to appease a lot of the people in power. So you have to appease the TV producers, the late night talk show producers. So it's not as though you couldn't be different, but you had to, I guess, formulate some of your different. You have to sort of stick within certain guidelines and certain topics that you could talk about. Whereas now, I think you want to try to do the antithesis of that. You want to try to be the point of difference from the people who are on TV, radio, etc. So just doing things that haven't been, I know it sounds really simple, but being the guy or the girl who can appeal to the people who haven't had a comedic voice before. So there's a lot of comedians now that are appealing to niche cultures and to smaller groups of people, whereas traditionally it was all about appealing to the masses. And now that's what's going to get you the most success, I think. I think I was talking to Jordan, or I think it was Jordan, and he was saying, if you just have 1,000 people that are willing to pay $100 every year, whether that's through Patreon, merch, live shows, that's your income.
Yeah.
So you don't need to have this kind of wide mass appeal. You don't need to just talk about whatever's trending or whatever's topical. Or if you do talk about what's trending, I think the comedians that are really successful are the ones that have a very unique spin on it. So Bill Burr is the master of that. You always know whatever Bill Burr is going to say, no one else has said that before. No one else has had that take before. No one else has had that perspective. And I think for the younger generation as well, that's really important. You want to have the videos that no one else has produced before, something different, something. Look, you can take inspiration from other people and take on certain stylistic elements and whatnot, but ultimately people got to watch your video and say, oh, I've never seen that before. That's what you got to aim for.
Yeah, that innovative sort of style.
Yeah.
Find your own style, make it unique. It's a message.
Find your niche and then just own that.
Yeah. So I've always seen you as just a comedian, a funny guy. Like, I can't really imagine you doing anything else, like you said earlier. But if you weren't doing comedy, what would Neel Kolhatkar be doing?
I don't know. I guess I'd still be in the arts, hopefully. So I'll be acting maybe, or writing or something like that. But if it was just not in that industry at all, while studying economics, I'll probably be doing some office job, working with numbers and in a corporate environment. Oh, well, I wanted to.
I have no doubt, you studious bastard.
Yeah, I know, right? Typical millennial. I never really liked working for other people, so I always wanted to start a small business or have my own business. And for a while there, I was running a little bit of a drama school, like drama classes and things like that. So I might still be doing that.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. How long were you doing that for?
Probably about. We only stopped it 2 years ago, actually. So, yeah, 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so straight after, even when I was in high school, I was teaching, when I was in year 10, 11, 12, I'd run improvisation workshops for the year 7 and 8s at lunchtime. So, I was popular, eh? Like, not only doing drama, just spending my lunchtimes teaching kids drama.
No, but man, see, like I said, I think it's so cool that you identified from a very young age. I love performing. That's what makes me tick, and you just went for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm lucky in that sense. Yeah, I just knew exactly what I wanted to do from a very young age. So yeah, pretty lucky, man. And then I continued the teaching after high school, and I ran it outside of school. Charged the kids a little bit, and that went really well. So that was like my main job for a while. And then I only really stopped doing it. Yeah, I'd sort of get other tutors to teach, and I'd still manage it with a partner. But that only stopped. When did that stop? End of 2018. So not long ago at all.
Being a comedian, from my own experience, there are a lot of times when you're doing stand-up that demand courage, more so than I think any other career that I can think of. So is there any time where you took to the stage where it just demanded heaps of courage, and what was your most courageous moment as a performer?
Oh, I haven't been asked that before. I like that question.
Yeah, so did I, actually. I thought that's not a bad one.
Well, they say, the testament to a really authentic, natural, and passionate comedian is someone who just sticks to their guns. And no matter what response they're getting, they just keep going and they're committed to their bit. And hey, honestly, going back to that gig I did when I was 15, where no one was laughing, I powered through that, man. I kept going. They were not laughing at all. And then I think I even started criticizing them at one point. There's a gig, there's gigs in Edinburgh that were pretty rough because a lot of, especially early on in my career, a lot of my comedy relied on Australianisms and Australian humour and Australian references. So I had to take all of that out, obviously, when I go to Scotland, and rely on some of my, B, C, even D grade material. And there were some nights where I was just getting nothing from the crowd, but you just got to keep, you got to keep going, got to keep powering through. I can't look, man. I can't, when I've done the Enmore Theatre, so that, man, it's amazing that I've been able to do it, but
yeah, how many seats is it? It's a big theatre, that one.
Yeah, I was performing to, I think, 1,300, 1,400 people, man. It was insane. So I guess the pressure's on there. You can't fuck that one up. And done 3 shows there. The first one, I was so nervous. And look, it was a good show. I wasn't disappointed with it, but I know I can do better than that. I was just super nervous. But then the next 2 after that, and I did one last year as well, they've been fantastic.
How do you deal with the nerves? How do you deal? Because, like, man, that's something that I think a lot of comedians.
Couple of drinks doesn't hurt.
What's that?
Couple of drinks that actually. I find like 2 drinks is good, man. If you do any more than that, then you're not as sharp. And if you have too many, you don't want to be slurring your words or anything.
I mean, that's not a very healthy way of doing it. Surely you don't drink every time. So,
not at all. No.
What's a method that you use to cope with the nerves when you obviously can't turn to alcohol? What do you do to?
So there's a few things I do, man. Like there's usually with a big show like that, I plan the whole day, so I try to be as relaxed as I possibly can throughout the day. I try not to have anything else on, no filming, nothing, just pure relaxation, like whatever it is that puts me in a good mood, watching my favorite TV shows, I'll even watch Chris Rock sometimes before a show.
Do you rehearse? Do you rehearse your set? Do you ever go over your set at all?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I try to be as well rehearsed as I possibly. You don't want it. It shouldn't be an acting rehearsal or anything like that. You should still be able to work with the crowd and change a few points of the delivery here and there. But ultimately, you've got to know your material. I'll even try to maybe have I won't go too heavy on the workout before, but like a light jog or just like a few little reps of something here and there, just to get some energy in and get the blood pumping a little bit. So there's a few strategies. It's not really one particular thing that I do. Look, man, this is at the end of the day, a little bit of nerves can be a good thing because you kind of want that nervous energy,
Well, yeah, but it's funny hearing you say that, because one of the things I've observed in your comedy, and something that I've always thought that you're really great at, is you do seem so relaxed up there, and I've never really seen you panic or seem like you're panicking, or like observing you on stage, you look really calm, and so it's interesting for me to hear you say that, because you never come across like that. And I've been wanting to ask that question for a while, because I was like, far out, like, how does he do it? You know what I mean?
I appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of people, man, a lot of people say that, but a lot of times in my head, I might be feeling quite nervous or feeling even a bit underprepared. But as long as you give off the perception that if you are at that stage where you've done everything you can and you're still feeling a bit nervous, then you still got to give off the perception that you're enjoying yourself. Because it's weird, like when we're doing comedy gigs, we're going to work. That's our workplace. Whereas everyone else is going there to have fun. So you got to get on that level. You got to be, for work, you got to be having fun. It sounds counterintuitive, but that's really what you got to be doing. So you got to be in a mindset of, I'm just here to enjoy myself. Because if you're enjoying yourself, then the audience, that comes through from your performance. The audience starts to enjoy themselves. I definitely look for, if there's shows where I have to catch a long flight beforehand, or I've had to do a lot of filming during the day. Usually, not always, but usually, you never perform at optimal level that night. Having said that, there's sometimes it's just things you have to do. But like, especially if I've got a show in Perth, because it's such a long flight, and usually you get to Perth and it's like, boom, rush to the venue, do your sound check, you're performing, that's it. So sometimes those kind of shows, it's hard to really be at your best.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, like if you're professional about it, you still got to, people have come to pay to see you. You still got to make sure you give them a good product. And look, you're never going to do 100% perfect show. There's always going to be a few. There might even be a few slip-ups here and there, but it's as long as you recover and still give them their money's worth, that's then you've done the job. So like I said, it's a job. In the end, you got to do the job.
It is. And one of the things about this job that I've found, and I'm sure, judging by a lot of the sketches that you've done that have performed so well online, like Mod Education and some of the others, they do focus around political correctness. And political correctness has become a massive problem, I think. And it's a plague. It's swept across the world. So one question I think might be a little bit left of center, but I am curious because you do tour so much, you do so many gigs. Has there ever been someone that's come up to you after a show where their duke's up, like almost ready to throw down because of something that you've said on stage has offended them so deeply that they're actually looking for blood? Has that ever happened?
Once, it wasn't after a show, but a guy, I was just walking down the street here in Sydney, and a guy, this is a funny story, right? He did a double take and he kept looking at me, and I thought he'd recognize me because he kept looking at me. So I kind of like smiled at him and I was like, hey bro, and he looked like he was lifting all these boxes. Well, he was lifting all these boxes and he was looking at me, and they looked like pretty heavy boxes and stuff. So I was like, hey, do you need any help? And he's like, no, I'm good, bro. And then I think he said something like, you good or something like that. And I was like, yeah. And this is the funny bit, right? Often, because I do all the like ethnic impressions and stuff, what happens when people recognize me is they'll be like, oh, it's that guy, fuck him. What are you looking at, bro? I'll fucking smash you. And then I say it back to them. I just go, what are you looking at, bro? So when he's like, you good, bro? I fully thought he was just impersonating my character. And I go back, I'm not making this up. I was like, oh, you good, bro? And like, he dropped the box and he's like, you want to fucking go me right now? Like, let's fucking go. And I still couldn't tell if he was joking or not. I was still like, yeah, like I couldn't tell if he was impersonating my characters or not. And then I think it hit me like, oh, no, wait a minute, this guy actually wants to fight you. And I wasn't ready for that. I just I looked at him a bit confused, and I kept walking. And then later on, because I went to the gym and then I came out and he was still there. And then I was like, all right, well, I was walking towards him and I was like, oh, look, I'm not going to avoid him. I want to see what he has to say. And yeah, it turned out he did recognize me, but he just hated my one particular joke I did and was having a go at me, saying I was racist and all sorts of things. And I was trying to have a debate with him, but he was so convinced that my intention was to mock certain races that I couldn't really have a discussion with someone like that. And yeah, that was bizarre, man. That was it's never happened again, so thankfully. But after a show, no, I've never had anyone. I've had some people say, "Oh, I didn't like that joke. I didn't like this," and I'm like, "Well, fuck, you do it then. Like, I'm the fucking guy who's been doing this for years. What do you I wouldn't tell you to do your job. Like, give me a break."
It's so true, and it's something that I find with comedy in particular. And it's like, you wouldn't tell an accountant how to do their job. You wouldn't go and tell a lawyer how to do their job. But yet every man and their dog will come up to you and feel that they have a right to tell you how to tell jokes or what you need to do as a performer. And I just think it's like, if you haven't done it, why would I listen to you?
It's pretty frustrating. Hey, I mean, like you said, that's the perfect analogy. You would not do that to no other job would you do that to.
Yeah.
No other job. Yeah. Some, everyone's, comedians should say this. Comedians shouldn't talk about this. They shouldn't. Like, well, go and do it then. Like, do what we do. It's it's pretty frustrating for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
Do that.
Something that interests me about some of your work that I've seen throughout the years is you really are like a prolific writer. And I mean that because what I mean by that is like the sketches that you write, the ones that have popped off and performed really well online, have been really well written. Like I've watched Modern Education 100 times. And when I look at it and I look at the beats and I break it down as a script, it's so well written, man. And I'm like, what's your process when you're writing a script? Like, what do you actually do to get yourself in the mindset? Have you done lessons, or is it just like, where's it come from? Where's the inspiration come from? How do you sit down, break down a script? What do you do?
Man, first of all, thank you. That means a lot. But that particular script, there was a long process. I took weeks. It could have even been months to write that one. I mean, I was working on other things at the same time, but I was doing draft after draft. I know my process with that was I wanted to say something about this particular ideology that had become more pervasive, particularly in the arts. That's why it was so personal to me, because that ideology in Australian arts as well is everywhere. And I thought, well, I don't just want to be simple with the way I criticize this. I want to delve into this as deeply as I possibly can, really cover every angle as succinctly, precisely, and effectively as possible. So it was a matter of just refining it. Every single draft, refine. I mean, there were probably about 30, 40 drafts in the end. There was a lot. I was actually looking through my laptop the other day. It was like, draft 1.1, 1.2, and then I think it got up to like 7.4 before I was finally, okay, this is the one. I'm ready to film it now. I mean, even little like words here and there. That one, so it was just a process. It was just what was work. I mean, I just put a lot of work into that one, and I put all of my mental energy towards it and thought about it as much as I possibly can. So I guess that's the really. There's not any real secret other than just working on it as much as possible and really refining it as acutely as possible.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested because you said that you spent so much time on that particular sketch, and obviously it shows. It was worth every second. Are there other sketches that you spend just as much time on that you think this is going to go off, and then you release it and it doesn't perform as well as you anticipated?
Yeah, there are some that I would have spent the same time and effort on and didn't perform as well as that one did. I think that one, it hit the right note. It was the right time, and a lot of things came together. I mean, the culture was just getting to a point; it was reaching a precipice, and now, I mean, even to this day, I mean, in the last 3 years in particular, every comedian's got something to say about that. Given we'll call it political correctness, but then there's been political correctness in the past as well. It's just come from different sides, but we'll call it political correctness. Now everyone's got something to say about that, but then people had things to say about it, but not from the particular angle I think I was coming from. So I think there were a lot of factors at play that led to the success of that film. And don't get me wrong, sometimes things just work, sometimes they don't. A vision comes together with the script and then there's so many factors: the editing, the production, the direction, all sorts of things like that. Most of those short films I put quite a bit of effort into, and a lot of them still performed really well. None of them reached the same heights as Modern Education. I worked on a series last year, Crossing the Line. I put quite a bit of effort into that one. Didn't go as well as I would have liked. It still went pretty well. I'm not gonna complain too much about that one. And my stand-up, I put a lot of effort into as well. Some of the sketches I write in a day. Some of them it takes weeks. Some of them I'll write in an hour even. It really just depends.
So Neil, looking forwards for the rest of your life, is comedy something that you're going to consider yourself doing indefinitely, or do you think there might be a career change on the cards down the track into acting or some other field?
Right now, I can't see myself stopping comedy. Luckily with comedy, it's something you can do concurrently with other things. So a lot of comedians will act, will write, some even have businesses, do podcasts, all sorts of things. So I can't see myself stopping stand-up, period. Like I don't think I ever will, really, as long as I can get on stage and talk. As for the change career, or if there's anything else I really want to do right now, I'm pretty happy where I am. I want to do more acting roles. I'd love to even do some serious acting roles, to be honest. I'd love to try my hand at that. Make a feature film one day, or at least be part of a really big feature film. I'd love to have a big comedy special on. Well, I mean, there's so many comedians on Netflix now, so it's lost the glamour. But I'd still love to get one up there. That'll be a great dream to achieve.
Yeah.
And then, but in terms of just like completely other career, I'm pretty content and well happy where I am now. So
you touched on earlier about you're a bit of a philanthropist at heart. Like if you weren't doing comedy, maybe you would, have your own business or be the boss of something or create something. Could that be on the cards? Could we see a new tech startup from Neel Kolhatkar in years to come?
I don't know about. Look, never say never. I like to change things up. So even with my comedy and with my style, I'm always experimenting with new things and new structures with my videos, new styles. So I like to do different things in my life. So look, maybe I don't know if specifically a tech startup is something I'd do. Never know. Yeah, look, you'll see different things from me, but I don't know if it'll ever be outside of the realm of comedy and the arts. I mean, that's what I'm the best at. And look, maybe if I can, I don't know, I run a small production company or something like that, where I can give back and be a bit of a philanthropist. I wouldn't mind doing something like that. I think that would be more of a long-term goal. Right now, I'm quite focused on just continuing to get better at stand-up. And I think with stand-up, we're all quite lucky. Usually, stand-up comedians have a pretty long shelf life. Even singers and bands, they often, by the time they're in their 40s and 50s, usually they've been at their peak, whereas comedians can sometimes be reaching their peak at their 50s. Yeah. So it's a great career. In terms of careers in the arts, it's one of the best in terms of longevity. So, in fact, I think the best comedians are older because they've had more life experience, they've been able to perfect the craft, and it's not as though age impedes your ability to perform stand-up. I mean, unless we get to the point where you're really starting to get very old. But, I mean, look, George Carlin, in his last specials, he was visibly old, but they're still some of his most revered. So, look, man, I hope I'm in another 50 years, I'm still doing stand-up. I'd really like that.
That's good, man. And hopefully the PC police don't crush our dreams, mate, because it's getting a bit out of hand, isn't it? So
It is. But you know what? The thing is, every 10, 20 years, there's always new social taboos. So in the 70s and 80s, you could barely do sex jokes, you couldn't swear. Whereas now that's fine, but certain topics about race and gender might be off limits. I'm sure in another 20, 30 years, there'll be something else, and the good comedians will always find a way to still deliver the jokes they want to deliver and to say what they want to say. So, yeah, it's frustrating at the moment, don't get me wrong. I think it's actually improved over the last 2 years. I think around 2016, 17, 18, that was the real peak. And now things have eased up. I mean, looking at some of the content on TikTok, these are teenagers, and they've got some pretty dark humor. They have some crude jokes, and I love it, to be honest. I'm so happy that the next generation aren't beholden to the morally puritanical standards of generations of yesteryear. So I'm optimistic. However, yes, there can be some pretty frustrating times with the current climate of political correctness.
Well, Neel, I don't want to take up too much more of your time because I know you're a busy man, and I really appreciate you coming on the potty. I just want to say thanks for coming on, man. Out of all the comedians and stuff that I met, I think we've always got along really well, and I've got a lot of respect for what you do and the way you perform and how big your platform is and what you've been able to do. So, mate, anytime you want to come on and have a chat, I'd love to have you. And yeah, mate, I'm always going to be in your corner. So best of luck with everything moving forward.
Man, that means a lot, man. I think I still remember, I was watching you before I got big, and I always loved your videos. So keep at it, man. And I've always looked up to you even. So appreciate you having me on your podcast, and
thanks,
look forward to doing some more in the future.
Yeah, no, and likewise, man. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have another chat again soon. Love to have you on.
Looking forward to it.
All right, brother. All the best.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We've got some big guests lined up for the coming weeks. Nick Kyrgios, some other huge athletes and comedians that I don't want to reveal just yet. I want to save some suspense, but I really do appreciate your support. I'm really looking forward to interviewing some of these big names, and really do make sure you hit the bell and subscribe to my YouTube channel to make sure that you are notified every time I release a video. Thank you for your continued support, and I'll see you soon with more podcasts and more gags. Cheers.